Welcome, everybody, to our RFP series. This is the first episode of our new series called Revenue from Protection, in this case. And in this series, we will try to dive into a business-first perspective on telco consumer cybersecurity. I'm very glad that our first speaker is Whalebone CEO Richard Malovic, and he will discuss this record demand that we see on the market, and we will try to understand why it's happening. Once again, thanks for being here. Richard will have a short presentation and then there will be a discussion, but feel free to ask your questions anytime in the chat and we will get to them later on. This is it. So Richard, the floor is yours and let's do it.
Hello everyone, thank you for coming to our webinar and thank you for such a great attendance. It's fantastic to see such an interest into cybersecurity in the telco space. So, because we have already 50 mobile network operators in our portfolio and there is so much exciting experience we can share, we decided to launch this series and share interesting insights about the end customers, about the usual telco decision procedures, to simply spread out the world and also help you guys with your projects and at the end to achieve the most protected people on Earth. I'm going to divide the presentation into 5 sections. First, we'll share insights from the latest Nordic operator Elisa, who did customer research about the most painful items in their digital lives. We'll talk about telco decision making as we are going through a number of selection procedures all around the world to tell you how and why the telcos are deciding, what are they taking into consideration. We will share learnings about the positioning as the telcos have usually a number of products in the portfolio. Where does the consumer network security belong? How does it cope with other products? And how to treat this short term and long term. In a section 4, and I like this one the most, we will share surprises. Surprises we learned from recent 100 conversations. So you're gonna learn how does it work with MVNOs, my favorite section. We're gonna speak about the churn rate, bonuses for salespeople, how much it should be, and we'll also show you what does your success bring and how to become a TV star. There is of course a space for discussion and for your questions. So as Andrei suggested, please post them during the presentation and also afterwards. We are more than happy to answer anything you have on your mind. So to kick it off with the most important, with the customers, with the end customers, the problems and the demand. So whereas the general research and the general data, not only in Europe but all over the world, tells us that more than half of the people is concerned about cybersecurity, and there is a major damage happening every day to the end customers. We always tend to think like, this is a generic research. How does it work in my environment? How is that related to my specific product? So therefore, I'm very thankful for Elisa, the Nordic operator, allowing us to share the quick results from the recent research they did with the customers to be able to position and communicate the consumer network security service properly and in the most understandable way for the end customers. So the first and most important question is if the customers perceive the cyber world as a security threat in general. Yeah, well, yes, the most of 72% recognize this threat. But what is most interesting for me are the topics that they are concerned about, and because this is also a hint what to communicate when we speak to the end customers. So you can see that the hottest topic on top of their minds is the personal data leak. 70% people fear that. Close place number 2, very related one, is a social media or email account takeover. 55% is worried about that, and only on the third place we have, so to say, the old-fashioned threats like viruses and malware. But then again, a new type of threats strikes is the crypto scam and online shopping fraud. So we see that 4 out of 5 biggest fears can be named as a new threats, something that we were not used to in the past. But we also can see that they are not really described in the security newspeak. So if the end customer think about the threats and about the danger in the virtual space, they name it in a different language than the standard security terms. So what we advise based on this research, and when you're thinking about the positioning and the communication of the cybersecurity service you provide to the customers, do not use the cybersecurity terms. Address the daily concerns. If the customer has ever received a suspicious message, if the customer has ever felt unsafe visiting a website, if the customer was ever curious about any personal data leak in the darknet, or if the customer has suspected some of the apps is sending data where it is not supposed to. So the outcome for us from the ELISA research is people are extremely worried about their safety in the cyberspace, and they name it with the real life situation and not with the traditional cybersecurity terms. So people want security. People want to feel safe. From our 50 MNOs and the statistics and the revenues, we see that our customers are able to gain from that service. We see that people want to pay for security, but there is one little problem we need to remind ourselves always, is that people want to feel safe, but they don't want to do anything to get protected. So we need to deliver a service just by making a wish without any obstacles. So again, we get the confirmation that a prerequisite for a successful service, either if it's a network security or identity protection, is that there is no installation, that the customer onboards just by saying yes or making a wish, and people want to feel safe. So it means we need to make sure that that there are multiple touch points. So we remind the customers that they are safe, they have been protected, attacks have been stopped, and so they perceive the value long term. So to close the holy triangle of a successful service is the product value, is the no burden in the onboarding, and is the right price. So the decision about cybersecurity is emotional because we work with concerns, we work with fears, and we deliver security. So there should be no consideration phase, and whatever place on earth you are, the price has to be 5 to 10% of the core service that the customer is able to decide within 30 seconds. As we are adding more and more telecom operators into our portfolio, and we are going through a a record number of decision-making procedures right now. Some of you may be considering the same, going into network security, and you might be thinking like, okay, so what's the basis for the decision? How shall I evaluate what's the best for me? So by far, the number one is revenue. So what we see is, with all of our potential customers, the most crucial thing is to calculate the business case and see how economic is this project and is this product going to be. So the number one, by far, leading the ladder is the business case and the revenue. So please make sure that when you are considering the cybersecurity service, you calculate the business case, you calculate it with all the channels you may involve, and then you will be able to make a quality decision, and you will be also able to get high management attention immediately. What we see as a second motivation and reasons for network cyber security is the differentiator from competitors. This is important as the services of operators are getting quite generic. So when considering what can be my differentiator, surprisingly, the motivation can be similar to revenue, because you need something that is going to differentiate you in front of the majority of your customer base. So if you find a differentiator for that is interesting for 1% of your customer base, it's not enough, because it's not going to be a real differentiator for most of your customers. So working with the fact that 70-80% of the people is concerned about their security makes it a real differentiator if you introduce cybersecurity. We all see the media headlines and the huge statistics of cyber attacks and the cyber damage. So especially in the Nordic countries, there is a huge interest to as a part of the responsibility providing data and connectivity to provide also an increased level of security. So this is a number 3 motivation, and a similar one, but from a different perspective, is in the fast developing countries where you perhaps don't have such a big problem with revenue, because the population or the demographic trends plays in your favor. So you have a natural inflow of new people getting into the age where they have a mobile service and connectivity. But so revenue is not your major problem, but you may have, or the telcos are thinking like how to improve my image, how to provide more value to the customers when they are joining us in such masses. And number 5, something that is happening only recently, as the market is getting penetrated. For your information, currently out of the relevant approximately 1,000 telecoms worldwide, where 50 work with Whalebone, 50 perhaps with some of our competitors, it's still a greenfield market, but in many countries this service is being introduced, and you may be, or those who were not the first introducing the cybersecurity service are then in a rush to catch up on their competitors. So this is going up in the ladder, and we may see it even climbing up in the next couple of months. We were talking about the general motivation for the service, and what is making the difference based on what are the telcos making the decision for a specific vendor. So number one, very natural one, is the product value. So what is the level of protection my customers are going to get? How does this product look like from a customer experience? What is the implication for my internal systems? Is it easy or complicated to implement into my network? So the product value and how and how often is the customer going to be protected is definitely number one. As world is turning and the telcos don't have time to wait for introducing a new product 1 or 2 years. Definitely time is of the essence and plays a big role. So the ability to deliver and deploy fast is definitely a selection criteria number 2. And number 3 is the value perception. So for security is no longer enough to protect and give a good feeling, but the customer needs to perceive the value. So therefore, we see in many RFPs and in many compliance checks that there is a clear, very extensive requirement to deliver customer touch points. The technical architecture has to be able to notify the customers via SMS, via email, via notifications. If something happens, we need to provide a customer individual experience. Each and every SIM card needs to know if it has been protected, when, what was the attack, what is the recommendation, etc. First 3 things that are usually evaluated were more about the product, but it's no longer enough, and it's even a reason to replace. We see that with some of the customers we are actually replacing other vendors because the telcos are seeking know-how. How to do the end customer relationship, how to do the go-to-market, and what to communicate, how to communicate, this everlasting iteration process. So the consumer network security in the telco environment is no longer about the product only, but is the entire service that needs to be provided to the product teams. And of course, telco market, telco industry remains to be conservative. So the more references you have, the better trust we get and you get from the customers. So good and bad references can make the deal and decide who is going to be the vendor for network consumer security. So now the promised positioning. There is so many options what a telco can offer. You have endless variety of products that can be sold, that can be integrated, etc. But how do they interact, and how we see telcos thinking about them, and what can we actually take out of so many deployments we have? So first of all, let me remind you, what do you possess? You possess the network. This is a technical ability, and you also have the trust of the end customers. Sometimes we see that the telcos underestimate the level of trust the customers have in them. It's because the legacy issues, perhaps with billing, with some pricing, etc. But that's a different topic. Customers perhaps may have a complicated relationship with their operators when it comes to billing and pricing, but they don't have a complicated relationship when it comes to trust into data protection, when it comes to trust, security, or reliability of the service. So this is sometimes being mixed, but it's not the case. So the telcos are the most trusted partner when it comes to cybersecurity, and at the same time manage the network. So that's actually a fantastic combination for a network security, and it makes the network security also a core service, because it's something that you have fully under control from a technical perspective. You do not rely on anything else or anyone else. It is implemented in your network. You own the relationship to the end customer, and it is a product where the customers link and tie you with the trust that they expect that they're gonna get the security from the telco. So, and how does it work with the rest of the services? So if you compare this with hardware, if you compare it with other third-party services, with the hardware, this is not a technology you have fully under control. And with other third-party services, this is not the brand and the relationship you have under control. But it doesn't mean that you shall stop selling hardware or stop selling third-party services. But it means that these core services like network security or IPTV can help you to address masses and then play a role with third-party services or eventually hardware. So this is a unique position of network security, and it also helps to start and build profile and position in the B2B segment. So we have many customers who basically overnight became market leaders in cybersecurity, are the most respectful entities in the cybersecurity space, and this helps them so much, the experience from the B2C segment than in the B2B, because everyone knows them already as a very strong cybersecurity player. So it's also a fantastic start for the B2B, and as many of the telcos are pushing hard in the B2B segment, it's a fantastic synergy. So the network cybersecurity is beautiful in a sense that it's a one customer proposition for all segments. You don't have to change anything from the technical perspective. You don't have to change anything in the core service description. You don't have to train your salespeople, your communication people multiple times, because it's always the one product and one product proposition that is applicable for all your customer segments. And now, finally, let's go to my most favorite part of today, and these are the surprises. The surprises we did not know a couple of months ago, we did not know a year ago, and have just learned recently. So we went virtually through last 100 telco conversations we had, and are very excited to share the learnings from that. So I'm gonna touch a couple of things: end user priorities, churn rates, sales bonuses, best performing parameters for a best performing digital product, how a digital product adapts in omnichannel, offline, what does a first mover advantage what does it mean, a first mover advantage in our space, MVNOs, a big surprise, and PR Guru, a big prestigious thing for you. So let's start with the customer perception. And so a couple of years when Whalebone started, we were not aware that there will be such a demand for customer touch points. But here you can see a heat map from a user interface of a telco network security service, and you can see that the customers are really interested into what's going on and what was the attack about. So our experience is that immediately after the customer gets a warning, gets a message that it was subject to an attack, or some of their data has leaked to the darknet, immediately they go and check in the user interface what has happened. But the biggest surprise here was that the second most favorite category of the user interface is FAQ. So people are interested into cybersecurity. They want to learn about the attacks. They want to understand what happened and what may possibly happen to them. So customers are interested into cybersecurity if they have reachable interface. So, and now let's move to the churn rate, because that's also interesting for the sales bonuses on the next slide. So the churn rate of network cybersecurity service is below 2% on a monthly basis, which makes the lifetime value of the service between 50 to 60 months. And that's a lot. So here on the chart, you can see week by week real data from one of our customers. You see that most of the weeks is close to zero, and then usually once a month it's up to 0.8%. So all in all, it's 2% per month, which makes it 50 to 60 months lifetime value, and that makes it eligible for sales bonuses, because if you want to have a customer acquisition cost / LTV ratio 1 to 4, you need enough revenue, and you need enough penetration, and you need enough lifetime value. So the lifetime value is something that helps us with the economics, and helps the telco with the economics, because there is enough space to introduce sales bonuses into the points of sales, into the call centers, and also to the agents. Here on the right hand side, you can see a chart from one of our customers who introduced who did not have sales bonuses in place, and then months over months introduced the sales bonuses. So you can see a 1700% increase in the number of customers onboarded into the service. So it usually takes the overall adoption rate up to 50 to 70%. So sales bonuses are worth it, and they still they can make it within the industry standard CAC LTV ratio. So highly recommended. Network security is a digital product, and naturally, the first idea most of our customers have, and we do have this idea too, is that the digital product shall be sold digitally, and that's true. But what do you do if suddenly you have the best performing digital product? You start thinking, can I sell it also in other channels? Yes, you can, because this digital product requires just 30 seconds to decide. So it does not interfere with your IPTV selling process. It does not interfere with your hardware selling process, because once when the agent speaks or there is a conversation in the shop, you do not clash with these high value services, because you need just 30 seconds at the end of the meeting, or at the end of the discussion, or at the end of the selling process. So most of our successful customers do not sell the digital product only digitally, but over the time it spreads omni-channel to reach the high penetration rates up to 50%. What we also did not expect at the beginning is that the first mover in the market will be so much more successful than those who only follow. You would think, okay, those who come next can learn from the first and be more successful. But surprisingly, we don't see it in the market. So those customers we have in our portfolio who were first, who had perhaps some time to iterate without the pressure of the market, pressure of the management to catch up a competitor, are both relatively and absolutely having a much better figures and have much more customers on that. So first mover advantage apparently gives you time and also helps you in the market to sell additional services. What about the MVNOs? MVNOs are usually mainly prepaid services, and therefore we thought, well, let's see, is cybersecurity for prepaid? And also the other characteristics of MVNOs is that they have limited sales channels. So it's not the classic variety of sales touch points you have as an incumbent, but not really. So we see that MVNOs are achieving very nice results. It's 15 to 20% final penetration. For an MVNO with much lower sales acquisition costs, it's a fantastic result. So this example comes from Austria, where A1 Austria launched with its secondary brands or value brands the cybersecurity service. You can also look up into our case study that goes through the Austrian secondary brands. So all in all, this adoption rates and the penetration rate and related to the selected go-to-market tactics and strategy has evolved into a science on its own, and it also helps us to work with the expectation management we have with our customers, because everyone of course gets excited with the 50% penetration that is reachable, but we need to understand and we need to create the expectation that to reach the 50%, like our most successful customers, you need to do a couple of things for that. So being transparent to our customers and telling and be clear that if the network cybersecurity product is positioned as a yet another value-added service and does not get the proper channels and proper communication, we cannot expect a 50% penetration. We will stay within a range below 10% penetration, and it can be fine for some of the customers, and it's also a great way how to present it to the management, to the omni-channel teams, and to the sales team, and to calculate the business case. So the transparency and the expectation management is something that really helps us to manage with our customers. So, and last but not least, is something that again we have not expected, because we traditionally, if there is a cyber attack, experts from the university, from some research institutes, or from national cybersecurity centers are invited to the TV or to the mainstream media to talk about the attacks. But what happens is that telcos, product managers, and our customers are suddenly being invited to the mainstream media, to the conferences, and are filling in the headlines because there is so many information and data you have as a telco operator, once you start protecting hundreds of thousands and millions of your customers, that some time ago we decided to introduce a new process where every month we create a press release together with the telco based on the data we have from the customers. What was the most dangerous attack? What is now trending? What are the overall data? And create a story about that. So every month we issue a PR news with that operator that goes out, and you can see the results. We have a number of opinion leaders emerged. These are the screenshots from Estonia, where Elisa is doing a fantastic job and is being invited to the national broadcasters. This one is from A1 Austria. A1 Austria leverages the data, organizes press conferences about the state of the national cybersecurity, and then hits the news. Not only the traditional media, but also tabloids are excited about informing, because it's the normal people who suffer. And then we have a shining example of becoming a real expert. And this one is A1 Serbia, who is now a privileged guest of industry conferences. It's a must-have to have a representative of A1 Serbia, because there is so much experience and so much data about the cybersecurity landscape in the country. I hope you are now one step closer to become a cybersecurity leader in your country, and one step closer to your most successful product, network cybersecurity.
Thanks a lot, Richard. It was a great presentation. We covered a lot of topics. And before we get into the discussion, I would like to invite everyone for the next episode of our RFP series. As we said, it is a series, right? So before we get into the discussion, please, next time our CTO, Robert Scheffer, will discuss cybersecurity and consumer value perception. So make sure to follow us on social media, and we will let you know, because Robert has a unique skill of explaining complex technological topics to people who are clueless, like us marketing guys, about like deeper technological topics.
I can absolutely support, and remember, product value is the number one. Product value is the most important thing we provide to the end customers, and Robert has the fantastic gift of explaining cybersecurity in a way that everyone understands. So I invite everyone to join us in the next series.
Perfect. So you can ask questions in the chat now. We can start with the discussion, but I would like to ask you for a couple of things. I think we can dive deeper in some of the topics. Mm-hmm. You talked about this value triangle, that there are three important aspects for successful monetization of the product, and one of them was pricing. Can you elaborate on that? You mentioned that it's somewhere in between 5 to 10% of the average revenue per user, but can you be more specific? Like, first of all, why? How do we know this? And also, if this is market dependent, because there is different, let's say, elasticity, etc.
Right. Thank you very much for that question. Yeah, indeed. So our data shows, or is the experience from all around the world, that you can forget that one price works globally. Yeah? We need to respect the local market conditions. We need to respect what's the purchasing power in the specific country. So the end customer price has to be aligned with that. So the to 10% I mentioned is valid in each and every country, and it's 5 to 10% from the end customer from the core service price. So, for example, if the connectivity or if the mobile data plan costs $4 a month, then the proper price for the network security service will be around 40 cents.
Why is it 5 to 10%? Like,
well, it's trying. It's so our customers have tried various prices. Our customers have conducted many researches, and this is something that we can give back to the market. We can share the information, and we can advise so people don't lose time with errors and mistakes, and can learn from others. Yeah? And the price is also important because I was speaking about it, that the decision has to be immediate and the decision has to be emotional because it concerns your safety and security. So we need to avoid a consideration phase because that's a killer in the buying journey. So we need to have an immediate decision, and again, based on the data we have, 5 to 10% compared to the core service price is the right price to take an immediate decision, so that the entire decision-making process takes 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Probably this is why the other point, right, in the triangle was the no installation principle, right? That you, why do you think this is so important?
Well, because the entire process has to happen within 30 seconds. So you need to understand the product, you need to perceive the value, you need to make a decision, and also the service needs to start working. And everything needs to happen within 30 seconds.
Okay. I see. One more thing that I would like to ask about is, because now Whalebone obviously is developing business all over the world, like in all the major like markets and on all the different continents. Are there some interesting differences to, or not even so interesting, but more like important that you should keep in mind? Because we probably have people from different markets on the webinar. Are there some learnings about that?
I would perhaps highlight one or two or three, let's say. What I really love and is so exciting is to work with the markets where we see majority of the customers in a prepaid mode. And large populations and a completely different buying patterns than a continental Europe. So, for example, of course, it's a standard there in a prepaid prevailing market is that people are buying twice a month, three times a month for 2 days for 2 gigabytes, and they buy only after they get the weekly salary, and then they top up and enjoy the service for 2 days, and that's it for another week. So we have to adapt, or we had to adapt for this. But it provides also many opportunities because these type of customers are also used to interact with their operator in a different way than in the traditional Europe. So you have many more opportunities where to exchange information. We can also adjust the service to make sure that the pricing is right, and also from a technical perspective, we need to make sure that the customer who was on the service perhaps a month ago or 2 months ago that there is some relay between these time periods, and then if they join like 2 months later again, we still have some information that they have been protected in the past, or we remind them that they have been protected in the past to make sure that when again in 1 month they're gonna top up, they choose the protected version of the service.
Okay, so this predominantly prepaid markets are not an issue.
No, they are very exciting, and it's fantastic to see the customer behaviors there, and I really like it a lot.
All right. And what about, let's say, high-end and low-end markets? Like, are there some differences in approach or something we...
Yes. When we touched the pricing, so there is one interesting thing about pricing is that we discussed this 5 to 10%, and interestingly for the network security service, relatively you can charge less in the high end markets compared to the low end markets. So for example, if you have a country with a core service price of $20, you will be able to sell for $2. You will not be probably successful if you sell for $2. You will be successful if you sell for $1 for the 5%. But if you are in a market where the ARPU is just $5, with a peace of mind, you can sell for 50 cents, and everyone is gonna love it.
Okay, and I have one more question now. So let's say, we know that it works in many countries. There are lots of, let's say, references and case studies you can look into, but there still might be people who would think there is no demand in their particular market, right? Because they will feel like it for no reason, not for no reason, but they will just not. It's not so intuitive for some people that cybersecurity might be sold to masses. Because maybe they have tried different products that didn't work, etc. So how can telcos make sure that there's a demand?
Right. So there are 3 options we see our customers choose. They either conduct a short market research that proves there is the concern in the society, and there is willingness to pay. Some of the telcos are more skilled in customer research. Some of them perhaps don't have these resources. So for those who don't have these resources, they just go and start selling. Perhaps in a pilot project. I personally like this approach a lot, because so far it has been always successful, and no matter what market it was. And the third option is we see actually more and more often is that telcos already believe and do not challenge it that much. So we even have customers who don't run any customer research, who don't run any dry sales period, etc. Just based on the references from other countries or perhaps competitors, they go ahead and go for the product. So it's we're getting into a situation where having a network cybersecurity in the portfolio will be more of a standard.
Yeah, maybe because they're also more aware. They see it happening in all these different countries.
Well, if 100 of your peers in your industry has done something and it was successful, I think it doesn't make sense to invest into verifying it again and again.
Mm-hmm. Because we also entitled this webinar "Record Demand." So, do you think this is the most important reason behind the record demand that we see in the market?
Yes, I believe so, because we have many customers. We've been in talks for a very long time, and right now they are making their decisions literally after years of considerations, because they simply see a huge market push either from the end customers or from the competitors.
Mm-hmm. And also that's why many of the telcos that get in touch with us now want to launch it soon, and we can deploy it soon. But we know that sometimes the decision-making processes in telcos can take quite some time. So can you maybe share some experience with the telecom decision-making processes?
Yes. So traditionally, a telecom is a large organization. There is a number of departments, a number of stakeholders that usually need to give their consent. And what helps us is the fact that this is a revenue-generating product.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not. And it has proven results. So if the product manager or the product department builds up the business case, and from the business case it is obvious that this is going to be a significant part of the revenue, of the company's revenue, then it's easy to onboard multiple stakeholders, even the top management, and usually involving the top management helps, because the main KPI of top management is revenue and is profit.
Mm-hmm.
So this helps us to decide. And we used to target 3 to 5% increase of the telco's revenue. But recently, looking at the cases we have in our portfolio, and if we look at the best practices our customers do, we reconsidered this, and we see that 7% is the right target for the telco, and we see a clear guidance and a clear way how a telco can get to an increase of an overall revenue of 7%, and 7% will make it definitely top 5 in the revenue structure of a particular telco. So that's definitely a C-level topic.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of 7%, because this is clearly a lot, what needs to happen for the telco to get to these numbers? And I don't mean, of course, specific, let's say, tactics, but more in a, I don't know, mindset, or like, what would you say needs to happen to aim so high?
Well, I think that telcos have everything they need to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
Since there is so much know-how we can share, basically it's just about talking to us and unleashing the potential. We usually provide a very specific guidance for each and every segment, how to perform, how to reach the goals. So for each and every segment, we have best practice and we have benchmarks. So basically, today is going according to the textbook, and we will get there.
All right. This is very optimistic. I think this is a good note to end the webinar with. So once again, thanks everyone who joined the webinar. Thank you, Richard, too, for providing us with very interesting insights into consumer network cybersecurity. Please make sure to follow us on our social media or whalebone.io, and tune into the next webinar. Also, if you have any questions, if you think about the topics we talked about, you can always reach out to us. You will find contact information on our website, and we will gladly answer all your questions even after the webinar. So that's it from us. Thanks everyone, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for such a nice attendance, and thank you for the questions.